Do I think I was fired because I was black? No. But was I the easiest person to get rid of and make Trump happy? Yeah.
It is on.
All right. So every episode we get a question from an outside expert. Yours is from your buddy, Don Lemon. Let's
Hey.
listen.
Joy, your comments about Elvis and Trump building power on the backs of black culture sparked some real outrage. But let's be honest. When a black journalist says that, it's called race baiting. When our friends like Jennifer Welch or Scott Galloway or even Kara Swisher says it, the reaction is often different. It's softer, almost intellectual. Do you think that you could have said that on MSNBC, or would you have had to water it down to keep your seat? And here is the blunt question. If you were white, do you think you'd still be there? And does that mean that independent platforms are now the only place to tell the truth without sanding down the edges for corporate comfort?
Don decided to go hard with the
Yeah,
question.
I know. Of course, he was sick all weekend. I was like, where's your fucking question, Don? He's like, I've been sick. I don't look good. I'm like, listen, you vain person. Get it up there. So Don's referring to something you said in a recent interview on Wajahat Ali's show, The Left Hook.
Yes.
Explain what happened there and talk about the blowback and then answer. You said you wanted to troll MAGA and you did. So they're easily sparked.
They're like, first of all, these are the fuck your feelings people.
Yeah.
Their feelings are so gentle and soft. You can't, they just, oh my God, and Cracker Barrel is taking off the black man on the next, why isn't he next to the barrel? Put the black man by the barrel or I can't eat it. I can't eat because, it's like, what is wrong with these people? They are the most snowflakey people ever. They are, their feelings are so easily hurt.
They are.
I'm like, y'all talk about us. You guys can't take, you guys are ridiculous. So Wajahat had this premise for our interview on his show, The Left Hook, which was so much fun. I love Waj. That was mediocre white men are driving the MAGA train, and they are destroying society because their mediocrity, they can't handle it.
Without black people, brown people, the DEIs, there's no culture in America. We make the food better, we make the economy better, we make the music better, right? MAGA can't create culture. They got Cracker Barrel and Kid Rock. And we're talking about affirmative action for mediocre white men.
And so I'm going with this premise, and I said, look, I think the ultimate example of that is Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump, if you just look at the facts of his life, he failed at business. He went $900 million in the hole after inheriting some odd $1 million. That is by any metric a failure as a businessman. But he was saved because, he's a white guy. So banks kept lending to him. Russia lent to him. Whatever, Deutsche Bank kept lending to him. And he was also saved by The Apprentice. We had on my MSNBC show, on the Readout, the guy, one of the people who was part of building The Apprentice. And he said, look, we hired this man when he was dead broke. He was on his face, and we brought him back. And the world believed he was this successful billionaire because of The Apprentice, not because of his own feats of business acumen. So Donald Trump is the example of this person that failed up, right? And he failed up so hard that he's the president of the United States, and he has a cult. Like, that's a pretty big fail up.
Well, I think you went to Elvis, the third rail.
And then I went to Elvis. And this is why I think it's legitimate. Elvis Presley was called the king of rock and roll by white people. Black people didn't do that because black people who had been doing rock and roll, Chuck Berry had been doing it, all of these great artists were already doing rock and roll. But this white guy comes along and does his version of it, including his version of a song that was a hit that was a black woman had already made. He redoes it, and suddenly he's the king of rock and roll. Little Richard would go on and on about this. If you got him in an interview, he would lose it about Elvis because the point that a lot of these black artists were making is that white artists were coming along, remaking songs that black artists had already put out and that were already popular among the original rock and roll audience.
Elvis. Yeah.
And they just took it. It was an appropriation. They just were like, I'm going to take it, but because I'm a white guy, people are going to see me as the greatest rock and roll artist of all time. Not all white artists went along with that. The Beatles were very clear about giving credit to black artists for their art. And it is the way America has always been.
Yeah, I think it wasn't that controversial thing to say. It's kind of obvious. Although I will say, Whitney Houston did make a bigger hit out of I Will Always Love You to Dolly Parton.
She switched it up on us. And we were like, hey. And, by the way, Luther Vandross made a career of doing that. Luther Vandross took Don't You you remember you told me you
Yeah,
love me,
yep,
baby,
yep.
and turned it into a
Nice.
whole soul hit, right?
Yeah,
And
good
so
singing.
you've got, right, thank you. So we have it in reverse too. It does
No,
happen.
I'm teasing. It's
But
much more so the other
but
way.
I mean, the reality is, it's like literally, Beyonce is being told she's not a country artist by people from New York when she's literally from Houston, Texas. So
But would you have had to, like, to Don's question, would you have had to water that down if you were at NBC? And do you think that race had anything to do with your firing, or are independents the only place for the truth? That's his question.
I feel like if I had said that on MSNBC and I had, let's say, said it without a script, right? If I had unscripted just said the same thing, I definitely feel I would have gotten pushback from management. I would have been told I needed to apologize, or
To Elvis fans,
you
at
know,
the very least.
to
yeah.
Elvis fans, and say, "Oh no, don't worry, Elvis fans. I think Elvis is great." Like, I definitely think I would have gotten in trouble. Yeah, I think I would have gotten in trouble. I think that's very clear. There's things you just can't get away with saying on cable TV.
Mhm.
You just can't. So I think that's true. I think as far as, what was the second part of this
Race
question?
had to do
with-
anything to your firing. He
So-
explicitly asked that.
What I will say is, I do not think, and Piers Morgan tried to say that I claimed I was fired because I was black, which I've never said, which is ridiculous, and I never said that. But what I said is, and that angered Piers and the other right wingers,
Mhm.
is that when I say something about Elvis or
Mhm.
I say something about Trump, it hits different to MAGA, because coming from me, it's the same way that Tish James prosecuting Trump and all these black women judges and Fonnie Willis, Lisa Cook, it hits different. Donald Trump hates the Fed, but the one he's choosing to fire and accused of being a criminal is Lisa Cook. And this country was built on a very determined, intentional racism. And the denial of that and pretending that isn't true, I think, is insane. This is a country built as a slave empire. And so the detritus from that still exists.
Mhm.
And it exists in ongoing racism and racial differences. And so, do I think I was fired because I was black? No. But was I the easiest person to get rid of and make Trump happy? Yeah. You can't, was I the easiest person that Trump would feel the best about firing? Yeah,
He
absolutely.
seems to have an issue with black women, seems to be. Except for Gloria Gaynor, I guess. I don't know what's happening there. Stephen Colbert, speaking of a very white person, was also unceremoniously fired. His show canceled.
Yeah.
There's been a social media rumor going around that you, Stephen Colbert, and Rachel Maddow are joining forces to create an independent newsroom. I'm assuming that's fake news.
It's fake news.
I know that.
I
but
would love it, though. It'd be
could you
fun.
imagine doing something like that? And what do you think it says about the current media landscape that progressives are getting excited about the three of you?
When I tell you my sister sent me that, like, it got to in my family. Believe it, like, everyone was sending me. I have had so many media people and friends send me that. It is not true.
Yeah.
I will say it right now, everyone. Rachel Maddow and Stephen Colbert and I are not starting a news network. We're not starting a network. That is not happening. But I think the fact that people would love for that to happen, it does say something about the thirst on the left to have what the right has. While we on the left were building our audiences at MSNBC and, believing that everyone could clearly see that Donald Trump was insane, that they could clearly see that Russia was involved in our elections, that these things were obvious, that no one would ever put back the guy who caused 1 million people to die from COVID, that, come on, we can all see this. We were in our own bubble. And I think that there is this desire now to scramble and create what the right behind the scenes while we were doing what we were doing, what they were building. I think that you have to be willing to just lie in a way and be cruel in a way that the left isn't good at, to build that in the same way. Or you have to do it the way Joe Rogan did, which is you're not even political. You're just actually appealing to people who loved your comedy, and you're just making a bond with them. And then when you shift to politics, they go with you, and so I think that people think you can just on turnkey build what they have. You can't. I mean, Rush Limbaugh spent 20 to 25 years screaming into, AM radio station. And I do believe that cable is what talk radio morphed into. And that now this independent media is sort of still building off of what that was. And the left just is behind. And the Democratic Party is lost. They have no idea.
There's some
how to
very
do
strong
this.
ones, though. It's an interesting. There's more than there used to be. I would say that.
Definitely, but they're not the ones who get the favor. You think about it. What committee chair is Jasmine Crockett getting? None, because she's not a ball-playing, doctrinaire, neoliberal Democrat, right? And the sort of doctrinaire Democrats still control the party, and the outstanding Democrats, the Al Greens, the cane shaker, I love him so much. Like those guys get sort of shoved to the side because they're seen as too loud, too obnoxious. They're not doing enough good job of McKinseying their way into the center, this fictional center that doesn't exist.
Although look at Gavin Newsom suddenly being the crazy guy.
But you know why? Because Gavin Newsom is just being like, I'm just gonna be an ass. If y'all are an ass, I'm an ass. How about that?
Yeah. So let's switch gears and talk about politics. In a recent interview on the Breakfast Club recently, you said Democrats are almost too orderly for fascism. I know what you mean, but you explain that.
Yeah, Democrats think that this is a political problem and that you can go in and you can stick to the rules, play by the rules, and somehow fascism will go away in the next midterm because we're just going to get this many seats. We're going to and it's like, that's not the way fascism works. You're just assuming there's going to be a free and fair election. Donald Trump saw your "we'll hit you in 2026" and said, I'm about to rig Texas. And then Gavin Newsom said, YOLO, you want to rig Texas? Let me rig California. And a lot of Democrats went, oh, we don't like that. That's gerrymandering. It's like, but wait a minute. No. That's what you need to do. It's all out war. War is being made upon you. You need to make war back. And Democrats always want to make friends, not war. And they want this orderly process that follows the rules and that never strays from the rule. Even Barack Obama, who was he and Eric Holder created that anti-gerrymandering organization. Even he's like, nope, time to walk away from that. We got to gerrymander back. It has got to be mutually assured destruction because the Republican Party has been captured by fascists. It has been captured completely by a cult. And if you're dealing with Jim Jones, the way you deal with Jim Jones is not to say, maybe a different flavor of Kool-Aid. Like, no, you have to get those people out of there. They're all going to die. Okay? Like,
they all did die.
Right. And so it's like, this is, it is even I don't understand the sort of calm that Democrats, and they're thinking, we'll just talk about Epstein a lot more. Yeah. No, you need to do something dramatic to shake up this system and make people understand. Something like, I don't know, Zohran Mamdani is doing, where he's saying, your problem is costs. I'm going to zero in on it. I'm going to make stuff cheaper. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to go radical. And then they go, we don't like Zohran Mamdani. He doesn't have the right views on Israel. And you're like, well, but he's going to win. They're like,
I always say, they big bug that young people don't vote. And then when they vote, they're like, we don't like your vote. We don't like how you voted. And I'm like, they voted what they wanted. And that should be the voice of the people, essentially, or whoever the people who vote. So when you think about that, I've been asking people about prospective presidential candidates for 2028. I'm curious who you're looking at. And you're saying Dems need to match game with game to get people out front of getting attention, whatever their topic happens to be. It could be Epstein, like AOC, or like you mentioned, Jasmine Crockett. Talk a little bit about that. We've talked about Gavin Newsom, Wes Moore. There's also Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro. There's lots. And there's people maybe we aren't thinking of. Can you talk a little bit about how you, and obviously AOC is a very gifted politician and thinker.
I kind of think she might run for Senate. I suspect she might be gearing up to challenge Schumer. Right?
Love. Yeah. I can see her upstate with those people. They would love her.
100%. They would.
Can't
and
you
MAGA
see?
people like her.
Yeah.
I can, because you know what it is, and I
She's a
think
working
people
class
also,
gal.
yeah, I think people think she's doing a thing that can be replicated. No, she's literally just authentic. She's just her authentic self. Jasmine is just her authentic self, Jasmine Crockett. Some of these people are just good. I just met a woman named Jolanda Jones, who's going to run for Congress, who's a state representative in Texas. Authentic. She's just herself, and people hate on it, but it's like, no, she's just herself. She was actually on Survivor, weirdly enough, so she actually knows a little bit of performative TV stuff too.
Yeah.
Even
in Iowa, that woman who just won.
Oh my God. Yes.
Just herself. Same thing with Laura Kelly, who I think is a gifted politician.
And I would also say Ras Baraka. Ras Baraka in New Jersey. That should have been the gubernatorial candidate. I'm not sure Mikey Sherrill will pull it off. I don't know. But she's a normie politician Democrat. And is that going to get like young people of color out? I don't know. I don't know how she's going to do that. Whereas I think Ras Baraka would have, but people sat down in the primary. I think number one, Democrats have lost. They've lost the plot on where the the power is. The power is in primaries.
Mhm.
MAGA and before then the Tea Party took over the Republican Party using primaries because by the general election, you just get the doctrinaire voters who vote their party, right? You've got to win the primary in order to win the whole thing. And Democrats have lost the art of making sure that they put the right person in that primary. So I think about the 2028. First of all, I'm not sure we're going to have a presidential election. I'm being honest. I think Trump is going to try to stay in office. I think this deployment of troops all over the country, 1,700 troops fanning out to 21 states, is a rehearsal. I wouldn't be shocked if he tried the martial law gambit. He's desperate to stay in because, number one, he's grifting so much money. He's getting rich. He's finally a billionaire. He's never going to give that up. And I don't know that he's going to allow a presidential election or a fair and free presidential election in 2028. So it's hard for me to sit down and what I used to do was game out like who could be a 2028 contender. I think it could be somebody we don't even know who it is. I think it could be somebody, but I think it has to be someone, and I won't name who I think it should be, but I'll say it needs to be somebody
Why
with
not?
Gavin Newsom's attitude. It has to
Mhm.
be that energy. I want Gavin Newsom's energy. I want Pritzker's money because it's got to be somebody who's so rich or that has access to so much money that they can overcome Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all these other right-wing zealot billionaires who are going to try to hold on because they're getting everything from Trump, contracts, billions. They're getting access to our data. They've got it all. They're not going to give that up either. So
Mhm.
we're fighting against the empire in 2028 if we have elections. This is our Star Wars moment. And I don't know who right now is the right person to be a candidate, but it's going to have to be someone. It's going to have to be Wakanda forever level,
Right. But interesting, you said
T'Challa.
Gavin Newsom energy, but not Gavin Newsom.
It could be him. I don't know. I mean, I have friends in California who are doubters, and I don't live in California, so I don't
I do.
know. But you live in Cali. What do you think? Do you think his record is
I've
good
always
to hold up?
here's my take on. I understand the problems with him. I get it. But who's the person? And this is just one single issue who stood up for gay marriage when it was difficult to do so. Only
Gavin.
person. Only
Gavin.
one. It hurt him dramatically
Yes.
as a politician. He was set back by a decade.
Yeah.
He was on the rise like nobody's business. He did it. And I had an argument that America's not ready for gay marriage. And I think I said it's called leadership. And that was just on one topic. So
Yeah.
I've always appreciated that. And I maybe that gets too much attention because I'm happy.
No, I think not, because you're right. At that time, it was portrayed in our cable news world as he's done, right? As he's finishing his career. And and I actually am a huge Gavin fan. I'll be honest with you. I think one of the things I do like about him is the way he actually trolls Trump without speaking. He's good
Handsome.
looking.
Yeah.
Trump wishes he looked like Gavin Newsom.
Mhm.
Okay, his fans try to dress Trump up and make him look like Superman.
Mhm.
Gavin Newsom actually does look like Superman.
Mhm.
Although actually, a friend of mine pointed out once that he also looks like Count Chocula, and I can't get that out of my head because he actually kind of
Gonna
does
tell
look
him
like
that.
Count Chocula.
Yeah, he does a little bit. Yeah, lately.
And I'm obsessed with it
lately.
now.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
put us side by
But
side.
we like
he
Count
really-
Chocula.
We love Count Chocula. It's good. I love the cereal. But he's like a really good-looking Count Chocula, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I love the fact that he knows how to troll Trump. He's a natural troll.
Mhm.
He's someone who I think America would go for like a Kennedy-esque figure. Look, I'm ready to roll with Gavin tomorrow. If he wants to announce, I will join his campaign team. Okay, I just need Trump to go away.
More.
Or I don't really have alternatives. I just want them to have Gavin's energy. So if it's
And
not Gavin, they
Moore
need
is
to
trying to
use-
grab some
And
of
I
that
love
right
Wes
now.
Moore.
Yeah.
Wes Moore is actually brilliant now, but I just interviewed him, and he was very definitive that he does not want to run for president. He wants to remain governor, which is the right answer because you don't want someone too thirsty for it. But Wes Moore is like genius level great. He's a great politician. He's really smart.
Yeah.
And I think he also is absolutely somebody who should be thought about.
Yeah. That
Pritzker's
man's never
rich,
been
which is
thirsty a
helpful.
day in his life. Just my
And he doesn't have to be. Like,
doesn't
he
have
has
to
all
be.
the things. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's a military war hero. He's got
Yeah.
all the things. Like, he actually doesn't have to be thirsty.
Yeah.
Like, people will be thirsty
Not
for
a
him.
day. Not a
Yeah.
day. So, but the Democrats have been lamenting how they didn't reach low propensity voters, low income voters, people who are struggling. That didn't explain what the party could do for him, as Mamdani has done, and why I think he's popular in New York right now. And the Dems are facing that crisis. How do you square the medium as the message is we need a better message? At the Democratic National Committee meeting this week, they were debating about U.S. policies toward Israel. Progressives are calling for an arms embargo and a ceasefire in Gaza. What has to happen here, given the centrists still seem to hold control, but not
Yeah,
really?
I mean, The reality is the Democratic Party's position on Israel Gaza is morally indefensible. It just is. The reality that we actually have laws in this country that are supposed to prevent us from arming countries that are committing war crimes. The ICJ has definitively stated that Bibi Netanyahu and his government are committing war crimes. They just are. And the idea that Democrats are still so beholden to this sort of 1990s version of foreign policy that
Mhm.
Joe Biden was, who's otherwise a very good and compassionate man, but on Gaza he seemed to just be just hard and cold. Like I'd never understood it. He believed all the propaganda that came out of the Israeli government. He just kept sending bombs. I think his position sunk Kamala Harris, to be honest. I think that hurt her more than anything else, even though I think she would have been much, much better on this issue. And I think she has more compassion, more human compassion. The Democrats, like the fact that they are so, AIPAC seems to have so much control over so many of their views,
Mhm.
and that they won't walk away from this war criminal any more than Trump will. They can't really ding Trump for being in bed with a war criminal because they are too. And so, and the young Democrats or the squad that have been standing 10 toes down that this is wrong, that this is that apartheid is wrong. They punish them. They sideline them. They let AIPAC come after them. They let them take out Cori Bush. No defense for Cori Bush. No defense for the brother in New York that was running, even though his district was probably redistricted out anyway,
Mm.
but still no defense of him. They just are so
It's
scared to
interesting
defend
because it's
Mamdani.
not just the AOCs of the world. I've spent an hour with my son. He goes to University of Michigan, and his topic was Israel. He's like, how can how can Democrats? Because I sent him a story when the number 2 Democrat said it was genocide, and then she took it back.
Yeah.
And I wrote him, I like, look, they're moving, like, because he had been very upset by the situation. Young people are very, like, of all
Very.
kinds. And I have, like, literally the tallest, whitest son you could ever have. And this is a very illuminating and motivating topic for them because it's
Yeah.
in front of their eyes kind of thing. And they don't
It's
think
on
they're
their
being
screens.
yeah, they don't think they're being tricked. They don't think they're
No.
being, and they also don't like Hamas. Like they don't like, and that's the thing, which is really, they're smart enough to understand the complexity of the situation, which it is 100%. They can have 2 ideas that October 7th is terrible and Hamas is terrible, and this is also a genocide.